Today we're expanding Las Palmas by adding in two major developments perfect for the desert setting. First, some lush green water-hungry golf courses, and second, a giant grey water-hungry AI data center. And for whatever reason, the latter has really upset locals. CEO Gavin Sterling travels in from San Aurelio to pay the site a visit and to see firsthand what all the controversy is about. But it's got him puzzled. The data centers really put Las Palmas on the cutting edge of AI technology, not to mention all the job offerings AI is going to bring to the local area, and nearby residents, they're going to benefit the most. But locals aren't quite convinced. But regardless, Las Palmas is about to change in some pretty big ways. For better, for worse, and I guess the much worse. Something else I'll be doing throughout this episode is adding in some of your ideas and suggestions, which now that I'm all caught up, I can finally start getting into some of these. Actually, the golf course idea was suggested by a whole bunch of you guys, so thank you for getting in touch with that. I think that this makes sense. I mean, we are taking a lot of inspiration from Palm Springs, and Palm Springs has a whole load of these golf courses all scattered around, which kind of doesn't make sense in terms of the environment. I mean, we are talking about a city in the middle of the desert, a pretty dry place, and golf courses being pretty water hungry. But people do like to live near green spaces, and Palm Springs does give me the impression that there is a lot of recreation here, a lot of people play golf. I think that a lot of people retire here. I think there is a bit of money. And so that kind of leads me to believe that we might create a couple of different types of golf courses, similar to Palm Springs. Some will be part of a club, and then there'll be other ones that are kind of part of these gated communities. I think we should start with a bit of a club, and I am going to build it, I think, down here. I mean, there's already a bit of water trickling down from the mountain. Yeah, I think that this will work. I'm going to use this water as a bit of a natural way to put a bit of hydration into the grounds of this golf course. But as you can see, we are dealing with a bit of a height difference, and I do also kind of need this to be fairly flat. So I think I'm going to kind of meet somewhere in the middle, and I'm going to raise this waterbed a little bit higher, and then I'll also flatten this down a little bit lower. And that still feels fairly realistic for the path of this waterway. And then we can start shaping where that golf course is going to sit. It's a little bit flatter, but I do not want this to be a super flat area. So yeah, I'll have to continue to work on that. In terms of the golf course, I'm going to be using this awesome one from PDX Mods. This is by Joe Erskine, who, I mean, I can't praise enough. He is a true mastermind when it comes to these assets. And that's the clubhouse, acting as our main entrance, our parking lot, and also giving us 50 attractiveness, which is a pretty good start. Lots of nice little details behind, some golf buggies, pretty fun. And a shed. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, this is where this asset and building really shines, because you can then go through and start upgrading this, and this is just so much fun. I mean, this is the sort of mechanic that I'm really happy to see a lot of people playing around with, all these upgrades. Really makes me wonder what else we could end up seeing within this game for the upgrades, because this is just such a great mechanic. I'll start with hole 1 and try to work in a fairly continuous motion so that you can start at one spot and make your way all the way around the course. I would like to try and fit in the full 18, which I'm pretty sure that's standard for a golf course. Joe is really good at considering how people are going to use his creations. So for instance, this golf course, I was just being a bit mindful about whereabouts I could place each one of these holes, the orientation of them. You know, obviously you want where people will tee off and then the green on the other side. But then you can actually go through and just place the greens wherever you like. And then it's the same with the tee offs. And that just means you can kind of just orientate these however you like. And that is just so useful. I think I'm just missing one more green down here. And that is pretty much it. Do we have the full 18? Not quite. I think we're up to like 15 or something. And I know I'm really, really close. And I could probably squeeze a couple more in. But you know what? I don't want to get this thing too large. It's already getting close to half the size of Las Palmas. So I think in terms of scale, let's leave it there. What I really like about this is that I can go through and just add a little bit of green around some of these edges. I really like the contrast with all this green space on the golf courses, and then the desert just meets it really abruptly. Yeah, I'll probably do a little bit of this around the edges just to kind of blend it into the environment a little bit more. But before I do need to figure out the path of this waterway, which I want to go through a bit of the golf course itself, and then it might go through a little tunnel underneath this green. It still kind of feeds into all this area. I mean, it is all very much on the same level of ground, but just for parts of it, it can go into a bit of a stream around here. I'll shuffle this green a bit to the side, and we could actually try and make maybe like a little bridge that goes over the top. Can I remove this? I can. Thanks, Better Bulldozer. Ooh, I tell you what, this is pretty tricky business. Making this stream feels somewhat realistic, but I am getting there. Something that is working is the height difference. If I show you the topography, you can see that where we do have the water trickling down throughout this region, yeah, the other parts are a little bit more raised up. And that's where a bit more of the green space is. Some of these little bushes that are sitting up on these areas. And I think there are a couple of things that are working, like just changing the ground surface and sort of showing where that water is still somewhat sitting, even though it's not really. A few of these decals could almost work, but they're just not quite what I'm after. You know, just like little streaks. Now this might seem a little bit confusing at first because it does not look like water, that's for sure. But what I'm thinking is I can place all this down. I'm going to layer them up. I'm not really too worried about how they are sitting amongst this environment for the time being. Now I'll use Move It. I will use the filters just to select the decals. And I will just hover over trying to select all of them. I think I've accidentally selected that one. Great. And I'm going to press Ctrl H. Make sure they are all at the same height. And now I'm going to use Page Down to lower this down into the ground, just poking through a smidge. And that's still a bit of a work in progress, but I think we're making some pretty good progress. I will come back to this and I will continue the path of this waterway all the way down here. And you can imagine it's slowly increasing in volume. So yeah, we might even keep something like this at that point. But I would actually like to just revisit our golf course one last time. I am trying to keep it fairly minimal in terms of detail. Like I could really get into some of these areas and go kind of crazy, but I'm trying not to. But what I am going to do is I'm going to use Better Bulldozer and I'm going to remove these surfaces. And I'm now going to drag out my own surface. I'm using this mossy surface that I think is going to just add a subtle change of color. And I think pairing it up with the ground textures and some other surfaces that I'm going to drag out, yeah, I think that this is going to look a little bit better for this environment. And that grass texture just blends in with this environment a little bit better. And I think that is a wrap for this golf course. I'm going to build a couple more, but what I really like about this is the fact that it is adding to our land value, which is great because Las Palmas is meant to be a fairly wealthy place. And at the moment, it's okay. I mean, we are on the increase with land value, but in terms of getting to this nice dark blue color, I mean, we could do a little bit better. So I will end up placing down a couple more golf courses. I'll probably build one here shortly and maybe another one around here. I mean, that makes sense in terms of the waterways, just using some of that water to fuel a bit of that green grass. But I do want to increase a bit more of that land value, and I do also want to get more residents moved in because I did get a few suggestions about increasing some of the residents within Las Palmas to solve some of the worker shortage, which we have quite a bit of. We also don't have a huge amount of people wandering around our new train museum, which, I mean, they really should be. It's a lovely place, but maybe it's got something to do with a lack of labor. So we should probably get some more people in. And to bump up the population, some medium density is going to be the key here because, I mean, you really just can't compete with the amount of residents you see within these blocks. Yeah, I mean, it's just far more than single family. And I want to go fairly wealthy. So let's just quickly bump up a bit more of that land value. We've got pretty much all the services ticked down here, except for communications. Yeah, I mean, that's not good, is it? I'll get a nice local post office down here. Oh, that is the perfect fit. We can also get rid of some of this really uninspired, just grown commercial. I mean, I am still a bit of a hater when it comes to zoning. Next, I think we should add some telecom because we have nothing within this area. I would like to try and add something on top of one of these mountains because I think it would be really cool just to have one of these sitting up here, maybe on this side where the industrial area is. Just feels a little bit more appropriate. We do have a really great backstory that Les Grande did send through and a couple of billboards that I'd also like to place around. This is going to be part of Aurelia Communications, and this is basically the broadcasting network or the communication network that is serving all of Marble Mountain. I might just place him up here for now, and then I'll add in a road, and we can terraform this mountain just to blend in a bit better. That is looking pretty good. It's builds like this that gets me really excited to be working in areas like Las Palmas. A little snaky dirt road as it goes up to this point, which is all practical, but I also think that tourists would probably want to come up here as well. I mean, just look at the view. Pretty lovely. So I'll place down one of these park service gates and we can kind of turn this into a bit of a tourist destination for maybe people who want to come to a lookout. We'll get a bit more sand around here so that people can kind of walk from this part. We'll have to add a little bit of parking. And now that I am flattening out all this, I do feel like I quite like that little plateau. So let's try this service gate one more time. I'll grab this dirt road and drag him out, and I think I'm gonna put a key on one side of it, so we do have a railing, you know, for safety. And I could actually put a cul-de-sac at the very end, and then that way, that could be a good little lookout spot. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this park if we do end up seeing people making the journey up to our lookout and using these empty hang-around lots, which I did spam quite a lot of all around here. That was a suggestion from someone who did say that this might be a way of getting people to our rail museum is adding in some of those hangout spaces, and yeah, I think I'll end up doing it down here if we do end up seeing people using our lookout. There is also a suggestion to add some food kiosks around the turntable, and yeah, I think that'd be really nice too. Seeing as we've got the option to add that as part of that empty park lot, that'd be really nice. Who's this? Oh, it's another cop. All right, great. So at least we know it's safe. Something else I've been thinking about is changing the textures of the mountains around Las Palmas. At the moment, they're mostly bare and very dry, but the mountains around Palm Springs are actually full of a lot of little bushes and a lot of rocks and a lot of little shrubs. So I think that we could probably do something a little bit different around here as well. It might just add another layer of depth when it comes to the ground texture. Oh, is that someone? Where are you going? Oh, you're going there. Well, that is pretty cool. And now that we're fully carried away with nature stuff, I did just download our new mod. I mean, this has been out for a little while, but I've only just grabbed it. This is Grass Sprites by Winter, and I've always wanted Grass Sprites within this game, but definitely not implemented the same way as in City Skylines 1, which was just about everywhere, even in parks and on gardens and all that. It just made everything look super wild, but without Grass Sprites, we also have very squeaky clean looking natural environments, and I don't like that. So this might be the best way to implement something like grass sprites within the game. Basically just a brush and you can go through and paint it down wherever you like, which is actually kind of perfect, to be honest. And this might be the sort of method that I would like grass sprites implemented if they were ever to add it into the game. And actually, it is in the game already, like it is within the game's mechanics, and I think that Winter has actually utilized those mechanics and is basically just unlocking that feature, and I might just use it a little bit sparingly in certain areas. It's the sort of thing you don't really need to put absolutely everywhere, but for certain areas, I mean, just watch me. Just add it everywhere. We've got two cars taking the very sketchy dirt road up to the lookout, and there is also someone up here doing a little bit of yoga. I mean, what a great spot to do some yoga poses. Mullah Mountain in the distance, and all the detail with the grass sprites. I tell you what, that is an excellent mod. I highly recommend checking it out. Now, spare me the bro just made Mount Chiliad comments because I know what this looks like. No, this is not my version of Mount Chiliad. My Mount Chiliad is over there, Mullah Mountain. Can you imagine when we have a little lookout on top of there? I mean, that is going to be pretty wild because this is just a little guy compared to it, but I do think that this is a nice little centerpiece for Las Palmas and a great way to attract some tourists and a bit more movement up there, which is what we're starting to see. Another person taking, another two people taking that journey. Good on them. At the moment, I am making a very lousy attempt at adding people to Las Palmas. We're currently sitting just under 3,900, so let's see what happens when we do add in a bit more medium density. I'm gonna focus my attention for some of these vacant lots, especially around where the station is. I think that'll be a great spot for a bit more medium density, but I'll also redevelop some of this single family housing. So these buildings are actually motels, and I've used the static ploppable mod to place them down like little apartments, which I think work pretty well. And then I've just added in a bunch of these medium density residential blocks, and that way we've now turned what is a bunch of props into a pretty large neighborhood. a nice little park just to connect them up to the train station. I wonder if they'll end up using it. And then for this corner, look, it all just felt like it was getting a little bit too large and all very samey, which I guess is kind of the point. But I reckon for down here, let's make it look like this is for future development. And that's about 200 residents just there. But I am being a little bit slow. I can't keep on putting this level of detail into these builds, so let's speed things up $2. And just sticking with medium density, we have doubled our population, which is pretty interesting considering that Las Palmas pretty much looks the same. I mean, it's not like we've developed up any other areas. We've pretty much just been going block by block and just adding a little bit of density, not even high density. So kind of interesting. Something else that is kind of puzzling to me is the fact that our wealth is poor. And when I do click on buildings, yeah, I mean, most residents are poor, but I mean, we are looking at pretty high levels. So I'm not quite sure if that's because I've been hand placing down these buildings and maybe I just need to wait for some wealthier residents to move in. I'm not really quite sure. Any ideas, please do let me know. But in terms of these blocks, so someone left a comment saying that Palm Springs is full of gated communities, and I guess I kind of knew that, but when I was thinking about this medium density, I was sort of going the same style as I always go, just kind of placing down some apartments like this. But I guess with the gated communities, you also have these medium density places where you do have the one road going in, and it's like these private areas where only the residents really access. And I kind of found this really cool spot where you've got these like vacant lots and these blocks. And eventually, these places will also look kind of the same as the ones around it. And I've used that as inspiration for this block, and this was a lot of fun to build. But I am kind of running out of buildings here. I mean, we could really use some more apartments on PDX Mod. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we end up seeing some more because I am sort of running out. But I do think that a lot of these buildings and blocks are really starting to work. I like this one, just being able to change the roof color. Really just changes it up from other places around Las Palmas. Let's build one more gated community. This time, I'm going to keep it single family housing, and let's give them their very own private golf course. A little different to where I imagined. Originally I was thinking about building it here, but yeah, I mean, we just do not have enough room for that. So I think that it makes sense to occupy this space, which would have been farmland. I mean, I'm imagining that all over here is going to be farms, which we'll get to. And then we kind of creeped over the road and extended all of this out because, yeah, golf courses are pretty large, especially when you are trying to fit in some residents as well. These residents are sort of what I wanted. I mean, it's probably a little bit too samey. I mean, that's kind of the point with these places, but yeah, I mean, it's not exactly what I wanted. I had to kind of be a bit fast and get a little bit loose with it because otherwise we're just not going to build a neighborhood. So I think that it is working and I am quite happy with the amount of holes we got. I think that it makes sense in terms of layout and it really adds to the rest of Las Palmas. I mean, just look at it compared to the rest of it. It's pretty large. Just got a little idea. I'm going to grab the eyedrop tool and just select one of these golf carts and let's go over here and just like place two of them down. And maybe this was just a couple of golf carts that somebody has stolen, maybe like a group of people, get a couple of tire marks. And then I'm going to use the transform tool just to sink them into the mud a little bit. And I'll even rotate it so it's really kind of stuck in. Yeah, that guy's really buggered. And then this guy could just be sort of like this. Oh dear. If I follow the stream down a little bit further, these cars that are parked along this road are bothering me because I imagine that this is a bit of a flood zone. So I'm going to change this road so that it's not parkable. Not parkable? Yeah, I'm sticking with it. I'll turn it into a highway, which I do think kind of makes sense considering that we are now kind of leaving the city and getting into a more rural location. And at this point, we can go into some farmland and that'll be a nice little wrap for Las Palmas for the outskirts of town. I'm going to keep it really simple because we do have a really nice square grid layout for the actual city itself, and the farmland should be pretty similar. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if you can totally see my vision, but I do imagine that Las Palmas is very similar to other desert cities where a grid layout, a very stock standard, very rigid grid layout like these squares are pretty achievable within a very flat area. Yeah, we do have these waterways and some flanking mountains, but I think that in terms of the buildable space and this sort of grid does work pretty well. But then as time goes on and new developments happen like this, then new changes and different ways of building road infrastructure kind of influences the way that these places end up changing. So you can sort of see where the old road used to sit and probably used to connect up to about this point, or more importantly around here. And I say that because I think that this would have connected here and there would have been a road and a bridge that would have been really similar to this one as it goes down into the waterway. Instead of having another road that gets flooded when it rains, instead they've decided to build a bridge because they obviously need a better connection to this rural road, which goes up into the mountains. Where does it go? None of your beeswax. And I know I mentioned farms, but let's leave it a little bit open and I will put it to you guys what sort of permanent builds we end up doing around here, because what I build now is somewhat subject to change. Like the vibe will stay the same, but I can also see that we do some more newer builds and some neighborhoods being established within some of these blocks. And I want to keep it fairly open so that I'm not too attached to how everything looks. But in saying that, I do think we keep it fairly practical. Let's go for a little bit of farming because we do have a bit of industrial demand. Let's start with some residential. I'll use Finder just to place down these houses. I will keep them fairly spaced out. And then for the farms, I'm going to use these surfaces just to map out whereabouts I want them to go. I decided to make some of these into real farms. I really wish this mechanic was just a little bit better fleshed out because for the most part, I really like being able to drag out these farms so easily, but I still really dislike, like most of us, I really hate these random props in the middle of the fields. They're just so random. But I will just put up with it for the time being because I do like to see some functionality to our farmland. There is a permanent build that I would like to build over in this area. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But let's get some trees down first. Potentially a few too many trees, but I think it's fine for now. We can always clear a couple as we continue to detail. But speaking of trees and detailing, I just saw that Reaper from City Skylines 1, who hasn't made anything in terms of assets in City Skylines 2, has just released some palm trees, the sort of palm trees that I absolutely need. Before I was using some coconut palm trees, and yeah, that wasn't really quite what I was after. This is what I'm after. Yeah, they look so much better. What a big improvement. And quite literally, these are truly massive, but exactly what I was after. These sort of palms are the palms that I wanted within Las Palmas, and it does mean I'm gonna have to go through and remove all the coconut trees. I wish we had a mod that did that automatically, but you know, it's fine. I don't mind doing it. But these are really nice and just a whole vibe. But let's go from something really nice to something pretty hideous. We're gonna be building an AI data center, and don't blame me. A lot of you guys suggested this and these comments were very much upvoted. So yeah, I mean, you guys want to see this too. These are seemingly popping up all over the country, and we're starting to get a couple in Australia as well. And they seem to be built within the driest places possible, which is kind of ridiculous considering they consume an enormous amount of water. I mean, who knows what the effect is going to be within Las Palmas. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what the noise pollution and other pollution is going to be. I think we'll just scratch the surface today, but you can imagine we could even do like a drainage runoff into our salt flat and, you know, a bit of a pollution trail, or there could be some other environmental impacts of this thing and other details. So let me know if you have any story ideas behind this. Also the character and who owns this AI data center. At the very moment, I sort of feel like this guy is maybe like a CEO for some sort of meta parody, or could be something to do with social media, or could be a ripoff of Amazon. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll leave that open to you guys, and we'll add a little bit more of a backstory behind this guy and everything about this company and what it's about and how impactful it is within not just Las Palmas, but Marble Mountain itself. And speaking of meta, I will be using their planned data center in El Paso as a bit of a guide, a bit of an inspiration board, I guess you could say. I guess maybe just a bunch of warehouses and some roads, some parking, some water towers. Yeah, I don't know, some gadgets and gizmos. I don't really know. But I do know that I do have a couple of different warehouses that I could choose from. These static ploppables are great because they are just props, and I could just string them together. Like, that guy is already pretty good and nice and large. Could just make it a bit larger like that. I've also got this one, what is it? A cargo terminal as part of the airport. And this could be another good fit. Maybe something like this. It does come with some very airporty markings. So maybe if I just drop him into the ground and, yeah, a few things to work with here. And that's the basics, pretty much just some warehouses and some gizmos, some batteries or, I don't know, water tanks, and an office, bit of parking, and that's about it. I would like to actually make this function as close to a data facility as possible. And, I would like to see some people working here, but I think we should add a little bit more detail and then turn this into a functional facility. Let's start by expanding these intersections. I do expect to see some large trucks using it, so that just gives them a little bit of extra space to turn. And then for a little bit of functionality, I'm going to splice in one of these Joe Erskine trailer parks? Or I guess they're just like a bunch of trailers, but kind of works because they are sort of poking out of the building itself. If I line it up a little bit better, it looks like, yeah, the trucks are like inside the building, which I'm not sure if that's super realistic, but that's what we're doing. And that adds quite a bit of generic industry, which is great. We need that within the area, but I would like to add something that is a bit more specific to the production of a data center. So once again, I'll go into our modular resource blocks. And I think we do need to go for manufacturing because I think that we can probably find something, yeah, maybe like this. Let's go for software. That feels probably a little bit more appropriate for a data center. And then I'm just gonna splice in a whole bunch. So far so good. I am really happy with the way that this is now looking, but I've only just called it an AI data center for now. If you have any backstories behind this place, what is the company that owns it? We already know who the CEO is, but what is all the story behind that? I've just been scrolling through some different buildings that I could splice into this, and I think that we go for a server farm. Not only is this kind of close to what AI is doing, but I also kind of like the fact that it has medium pollution. He is a big boy, and I think that I could probably drop him into the ground just a little bit. It's a shame because I do kind of like this building here, but it's just not going to fit. And I've just given this thing all the upgrades, but I will leave it at that because I think it's now just a matter of watching this noise pollution and just modifying the growth of the city around it, because I think that certain people are going to start complaining. And we'll have to see if it creeps into this residence. But I really like just how imposing it is and how brutal it looks and the stark contrast with the natural environment and even all the farmland around it. That is sort of the point with these things and builds like this. And also just managing that noise pollution, which again is only going to get worse. So while we wait for that to creep into places where we don't really want it, but then secretly kind of do want it, let's work on some other things. I would like to address a couple of complaints and problems that I'm having, because I am still having a massive problem with getting people to our train museum. I've tried a couple of things, but the most recent thing that I'm trying is placing down a large playground. I removed all the props attached to this thing, and then I've also dragged out and extended the walkable and the hangout areas, and still no one. In fact, the maintenance for this is starting to decrease, so no one is down here, and it's been a while. But then up here, I've also placed down a pretty substantial, attractive park, but nothing. No one's coming here. I mean, apparently one person is. It's a cop. That just so happens to be the only people actually coming here. Here is someone. I don't know where they're going, but they're probably going to the other park that I had placed down. But I mean, nothing seems to work. Every now and again, I'll get a couple of people doing yoga, but besides that, no one. I've run a couple of tests within the city around some more populated areas, and I am seeing way more people from the very get-go actually coming to the park. So I think it has something to do with the fact that it's sort of out of the way. So people don't actually go out of the way to go to a park. They just go to ones that are convenient and close and probably within walking distance. This is driving distance. I mean, it's a very treacherous driving distance. So I think that the game's mechanics just doesn't really allow for stuff like this, which is, I mean, it's just really annoying because I want to build lookouts and see people go up here and they just don't. So maybe that's something we'll end up seeing improved on within the game in the future. I'm going to keep on building these places, but I am really stumped. I don't know what else to do to get people to come to these custom park areas. If you have any ideas, please continue to let me know because I will always continue to make these and I guess just continue to see no one visit them. I'm also going to move the wind farm back to its original spot. A lot of you guys agreed that this is a bit too cluttered and I also agree. I'll probably end up doing some sort of solar farm at some point, but until I know exactly what's going to be going around here, I'm going to just leave it at this wind farm. We don't really need anything extra, so I think that'll do. I'm going to also place our water tower, which does have a little welcome sign on the front of it, but I will end up making something a little bit more official and custom that we can place down here with a nice little garden bed and some of those new palms. I think would look lovely. And I will now just place down one more custom sign, which is made for Aurelia Communications. And that looks like a pretty good little spot for that. But I'm going to leave it there for today's episode and for the expansion of Las Palmas, which I think we've made some pretty good progress. I mean, considering this was nothing a couple of weeks ago and now it is, well, a whole lot of something, is pretty nice. So I think I'm gonna go into the city in the next episode and work on some city expansion, some places where we haven't worked before. So I'm really excited to get into some of that. But until then, guys, thank you all so much for your support and for watching and all your suggestions over the last couple of weeks. It is very much appreciated. And as I'm giving out some thanks, I want to give a special shout out to my beloved patrons and YouTube members for making videos like this possible. Yukari, Sebi, Janus, Regimental, KVJ Breaker, Timbo Walker, Sky Rajaba, Zena, Sander Julian Noah, and Adrian. Cheers, legends. Catch you on the next one. See ya.